is crucial in terms of that other side and that movement and that transition of sport is being healthy and happy, which to me is success, and being healthy and happy within sport, but also without it and in life as well, because it's a long time that you're not playing sport, so in that other phase of life.
That was Bridget Blackwood, our guest for today. Bridget is a former professional hockey player who was capped over 50 times by New Zealand. She's also a qualified teacher, but has used her expertise in teaching and experience of being an athlete to start her own athlete support company, BB360 Athlete. We talk about her transition from hockey player to life as a teacher, her role at Brentford Football Club, where she helped develop a player care programme, and what she offers today with her own company. Thanks to Bridget for her time. You can find all her details in the episode notes and how to get hold of her. So let's get into my conversation with Bridget Blackwood. Further north, kind of Auckland way, and just to explore a little bit more. What about yourself? Where are you from in New Zealand?
So I grew up just north of Wellington, so in a city called Palmerston North. You probably wouldn't have heard about it.
I know it, but obviously as a typical tourist, you just stay right in the centre, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't advocate going there too much. No, it was great for a childhood, but if you're going over to visit New Zealand for 3 to 4 weeks, Palmerston North wouldn't be one of the places that I'd say you have to go to. So I grew up there and then finished my schooling actually in Wanganui, which is an hour from there, Wanganui Collegiate, private school over there, and then went down to Christchurch for university. So I was in Canterbury and then in university, and then had to relocate to Auckland because of hockeys, and then ended up living and working and playing up there for 5 years until
Is that the main hub, is it, of hockey in New Zealand? Is Auckland, or is Christchurch also kind of like a bit of a...
Both. The centralised program is based in Auckland, so during like the Olympic cycle and things like that, we had to be up based in Auckland. In and around that, you can live in your home province, but it's hard because a lot of the team, predominantly of the team is based up in Auckland because that's where the coaching is, that's where, the full-time staff are. So you kind of are urged to move up there and relocate as such.
At what age was that?
I ended up moving up when I was 20. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that a good age for you? Was that kind of not too early?
No, not too early. Had a bit of the uni experience. We've only kind of really got in New Zealand 5 big university towns. So, and every one is a little bit different in terms of, 1, what you're studying, but 2, like your experiences and other things as well. And I think that kind of, whereas here it's just, there's so many to choose from as with a lot of things and opportunity, being in the UK versus New Zealand. So, that resonates to quite a few different bits.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
We're recording now. Is that okay?
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah.
Cool. So you came over to, so you've been in the UK already for 8 years, but just going back to the hockey side of it.
Yeah.
So you represented New Zealand for, how many, was it 50 times, over 50 times?
Yeah, just over 50 caps.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. Grafted away with the hockey for a few years. I kind of, had a really fortunate journey with that. I think, I made
what do you say? What do you mean fortunate? I mean, you've got to have worked hard to make it. It's not, they're not just going to let you in for nothing. Do you know what I mean? You obviously got a talent there to get 50 caps.
Yeah, yes and no. Well, I think just seen by the right people at the right time, and timing's a big thing in a lot of things. And I think, and also I think, New Zealand, we're a population of 5 million compared to 60 over here, so there's less people maybe going for different positions. But no, humble is one of my traits that sometimes is a strength but also a weakness. But I think, like I said, the timing kind of happened. Sport is such a big culture of New Zealand, so we were always kind of encouraged to play a lot of sports, and I think the accessibility to that is what I mean in terms of fortunate to have the different opportunities, and just met and had some awesome friends come about through that, and part of the journey in that regard. So yeah.
And were you at the London Olympics?
So I was in the squad for London Olympics and missed the final selection. So that was the kind of big turning point, and that's, well, not turning point, I guess. It was more the challenge of that 2012 year, having had to relocate to Auckland, just turning 21 at that point. You're still kind of young, you're still juggling university, putting that on hold to dedicate, full-time centralised program. We had 4 tours that year, and, was in all the tours leading up to the last selection tour. We were in Korea and China, actually, and then that was where the final kind of we had a squad of 25, but only 20 of us were on that, and then that's where the final 16 was selected from. So, tough pill to swallow at the time.
You were in the final 25.
I was in the squad of 25, and then in the final squad of 20 to those 2 Asian countries, and then just missed that last selection by 16 with the final selection that went to London Olympics.
It must be tough.
It's tough.
Get close to.
Yeah. You're not going to beat around the bush. It is. Yeah, selection is tough. It is we know a huge part of team sport. It's tough pill to swallow, and needed some time to kind of work through that, I guess. But had a little bit of a break. End of 2012. Again, timing of an injury kind of came at the right time. I guess just to kind of, help me reset physically, but also actually mentally. I think that
mentally have a break.
And I think just kind of digest actually what that last kind of 12 months mean. I mean, you accrued, a lot of caps, and, was fortunate to have those experiences, but actually it taught you that cruelty or that other side of sport, I guess, in terms of selection.
Sure.
And the Olympics is such a pinnacle event for hockey. It's the Olympics, then probably followed by the World Cup, and then followed by the Commonwealth Games, are kind of about 3 big pinnacle events as such. And so, when you're training or working towards that, that goal or that final thing, I think when you don't quite make it, it's an obstacle and a challenge that you just you have to work through and reassess. So that's what kind of evolved into 2012, into the end of 2012.
Do you think the studying, that like your studies on the side, that kind of helped kind of take your mind off, or you had something else to concentrate on as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm all about balance, always, have been in that sense, and, been supported from, mum and dad and family to always have that other thing, whether it be passion, interest, those other things that you kind of focus on. And I think that's now where my journey's kind of gone in terms of setting up and setting up my own business and wanting to kind of broaden that and give that awareness to athletes in sport as well. So I think it's crucial. I think you can't live in that sport bubble all the time. You just burn out.
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy. And I think mentally as well. And to be fair, my best friends at school, at university, none of them really played hockey as such. So you always had that separate life away from that sport. So, it came tough at times because it came into some of those choices, or, people use sacrifice, but I prefer to use the word choice because it was my choice to, follow down that international hockey path and play sport, fortunately for my country. But, I did have that balance and support network, which I think is a massive thing. I think those are the 2 things to kind of help you provide that all-roundedness to you as a person.
Yeah. What were you studying?
I studied teaching. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, from the kind of early ages of, secondary school, I had a few PE teachers that I got on with really well and kind of just helped, advise or mentor me as such. And I think, being in a big secondary school that I was in New Zealand, I made the first 11 when I was 13. So it was pretty... You're kind of tracked down with 17, 18-year-olds. And so I think, having them as a mentor advisor kind of alighted that passion of who you can support. And I think, I love working with people in the sense of trying to get the best out of them, but also that the impact that you can have. So teaching is, just great for that. So, studied teaching down in Canterbury, and then I had to finish it from remote, from distance because of the hockey and where I was based up in Auckland. So, University of Canterbury were great with that flexibility that they gave me to kind of manage the two in my last kind of 1.5 years. But I think, I was fortunate to not make the New Zealand team until I was 20, because it meant I got through 2 of my years of my degree before that kind of then had to, manage both.
And you, if I'm right in saying you did further teaching over in the UK when you've come over to the UK?
Yeah, I did. Yep. So I did my Master in Education through Buckingham University in 2021. Yep. So that was a 12-month course that I did alongside, being head of sport at Surbiton. So just, again, managed and juggled both, full-time work as well as, doing my Master in Education. So, cool kind of, I mean, it was a challenge, but now looking back, it was, really grateful to kind of, grasp through that year. And I think, it taught me a lot of things in terms of, studying and also just the development as well as the academia side over here in the UK, I think is to another level of what it is in New Zealand as such, and that focus and that intellect. So, it pushed me, and it was, challenging for, 12 to 14 months, but it came out the other side. And
just going back to just going towards the end of your hockey, was there a year, was there a specific time where you actually pulled the curtain down on your hockey career? Was it when you said, okay, I'm finished now? Because is there an average age when people retire? Is there that kind of, in football or rugby, there's always this kind of 32, 33, 34 age where you start considering stop playing professional sport. How is it for hockey?
Yeah, I think it's similar, but I think it again depends on the individual.
Depends on the squad and
the coaches. Like as I said, it's so subjective in terms of teams and how you kind of getting on with the squad as well as where you kind of are seeing yourself at. So I wouldn't say a curtain was closed as such. I got to middle of 2014, so 2013 was a great year for me in terms of hockey. Was on all the tours and saw lots of different parts of the world, which was really fortunate to have. And then 2014 actually tore ligaments in my ankle, so I was out for a while with that. And then literally came back, and the second session back then got a 7 centimeter tear in my quad. So it was like not rising on the wall a little bit, but I think it just again made me kind of reset in that sense physically. Is can I keep going through this? And I'm pretty competitive person, not a great trainer, I would have to say. We do it because we know the benefits of it, but I think playing a game, playing a match, like completely different person to being on the training pitch. And so, that kind of, again brought out that, white line fever and that competitive element of me. And I think missing out on some of those experience because of injury, again, it's part of sport. It's what the bill you have to tackle. But I think,
How old were you at that time?
So 2014, I was 23, just
young.
turned 23 when I kind of was going through that. Is this really what I want? That I think 2013 I was, as such, in favour a lot in terms of that. And I think, in terms of selection and playing all the tests that year. But I think that then, having my teaching degree by that point, so 2013, I qualified with that. I think, having a mixture of having the teaching degree, the injuries that came with the living up in Auckland and dedicating 6 days a week to your sport, being in that bubble, I think you kind of just, for me, as I mentioned, I'm a pretty all-round person in the sense of sport is a huge part of who I am, absolutely. But it's not just who I am. And I think that was the real kind of defining moment, I guess, as such in 2014 of, can I just keep going through this roller coaster that it was? And, and it is, everyone's sports journey is a roller coaster. And I think, as I said, everyone's individual kind of experiences shapes what their kind of journey is. So 2014, I kind of just took a bit of a pause as such on the full-time hockey, and I was like, do you know what, I'm gonna do 2 years of teaching, because you kind of have to do your registration as such, your provisional registration, and then you're fully registered. So I had a year 7 and 8 classroom in Auckland and absolutely loved it. Was predominantly Pacifica and Māori students, so they're from a low kind of decile, so you were there, massive support and security, and they came to school every day, and you were the kind of safe person for them. So that kind of again had that different impact, and what teaching is absolutely phenomenal for. Yeah, and so still played hockey, still played county for Canterbury in the National League and stuff like that, and played club hockey and loved again playing, and was only then training once, twice a week. So that suited me in terms of just having a little bit more of my life as such back in that regard.
Was it more of an enjoyable hobby again?
Exactly that. And I think that is really important, as you lose, don't get me wrong, during my New Zealand days, playing internationally, I absolutely loved it. But I think I loved playing the games, being on tour, loved those experiences, those different cultural experiences, and being, in different countries, and just the team camaraderie with it. And so I think, when you take a step back and look at, why you're playing, that kind of, brought a light, those elements. And then, fast forwarding a little bit. So did my teaching thing and kind of just had a break from it, talked to the New Zealand coach, and we were all on the kind of same page in terms of just going to have, a pause. And, he said, look, you'll have to, come back and do fitness test and see where you're at within the squad and things like that. And I just, was open, just said, look, I just don't want to go back to doing it full time. I'm really happy with where I'm at the moment. And then, the UK opportunity kind of came about, and start of 2016 I thought, this is the right time to do it. 2 of my sisters were living over in London at the time, as well as, really fortunate to have a UK passport. So it just made that working and travelling element.
One of your parents British then? Or?
Yeah, my mum was born here, but then moved out to New Zealand when she was 3. So, thanks to mum, I'm one of 4. So all 4 of us children have British passports. So it does make it really easy and, easier in terms of working and living over here. So it was kind of like, you've got this ticket, why not use it and make the most of the opportunity? Yeah.
Do you feel having your degree and kind of already kind of in the bag, so to say, that helped you with the transition side of leaving that sport? Was there less of a kind of this kind of empty feeling of I've just quit the sport that I've played since I was so young?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think you've got, as I said, you've got options, and I think that's a massive part of that transition point. And now working with athletes and mentoring them and that such, my big urge or kind of guidance to them is, if you've got options, you've got choices, and it's whether you use them or not is completely up to you, and that whole timing thing. But I think for me, having that teaching degree was that kind of next phase or option that I could use or draw upon, in that sense of, actually there's more to just Bridget. She's not just a hockey player. She has other elements and parts of her identity, and I think that's also a massive part of sport, is that you build your identity around that sport rather than that sport being a part of who you are as an identity. And I think that's also a massive piece in terms of that transition phase, more mentally than anything, to be fair.
What you said there was really interesting with the options and choices and how you were speaking to athletes. I want to get into that later on, because I want to talk obviously more about the BB360 athlete and what you do now, but I'm just interested in that journey, how you've gone from teaching. You also worked at Brentford in a kind of a player care role. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So I did, so 2 years in New Zealand and then 6 years over here, 5 of them being as director of sport at one school and then head of sport at another school. And then it kind of, after my master's finished, I kind of was like, where did my passion lie? And it kind of came back to that mentoring advisory. So there was an opportunity at Brentford to work with the players off the pitch in terms of their player care, but personal development inside of that as well. So that kind of then, moved into that environment, which was, again, something that New Zealand doesn't have. We put the All Blacks in terms of our kind of high regarded sport, and the All Blacks compared to Premier League football clubs is just huge amounts of difference, in terms of the resource and the financial backing, but I think also in terms of like the athletes themselves and that kind of football industry and that football journey. So for me, it was, an amazing experience, and it taught me a lot about, athletes in that world, but also how we can support them better. So that kind of, transitioned into that stage of working for Brentford for a year and 3 months it was in the end, about 14, 15 months. And then that's when I was like, do you know what, I really want to support those athletes more on a one-to-one on personal development. Whereas I think the player care, there's so many other elements of that job. So that kind of then...
How was it going into a different, sorry to interrupt, how was it going into a different sport? You come from a hockey background. Was there a bit of trepidation, or was it because you've been a teacher at the schools as head of sport, you were already kind of, it doesn't matter about what sport it is, there's still that general care of the person and the athlete and the child, really, aren't they?
Absolutely. Going back to New Zealand and the culture that we have there, it's such a massive sporting culture that doesn't define, I think we're not pigeoned growing up, we're not pigeoned into one sport too much. And not that I think over here there is, but I think you play certain sports within certain terms. And being in that head of sport, it was kind of, my drive and part of what I wanted to bring into that role was actually an all-round, broadened sports person. Like, you shouldn't be deciding on what sport you're doing at 10 years old. You shouldn't even probably be at 14, 15 maybe, 15, 16, you probably should maybe
just be active.
Focus. Just be active, have, the different sports. I played a lot of tennis, so an individual sport until I was kind of 13. So I think that too kind of helped develop me as a hockey player in a team environment. But I think all of those different, sports is such a phenomenal thing for building so many other life skills. And I think, being part of a team, learning how to win, learning how to lose, being gracious in defeat. I think, getting on with people and being in that team environment where you aren't always, going to be the best of friends or choose who your teammates are, but having that respect and that, rapport for each other is really important. So I think sport generally, that's my kind of philosophy on it. And so, as head of sport, that's what I kind of wanted to send across as a message as such. And then I think the football, hockey and football are pretty similar games in the sense of the positional element. Yes, there is obviously some different rules of it, no offsides and, you can self-pass and things like that. And hockey now has sped up the game a lot. So, there's tactical elements that are very similar. So I think it was, to be fair, it was actually more being a female going into that football environment that actually was the big, okay, come on now, pump the chest up a little bit, because I never am or have been like that, but you kind of just had to back yourself in that environment around a male, a male dominant sport. It was more that side of it, I think, rather than going, this is a sport or this is something that I can't do. It was more, female, this is different. Who's this talking to us, So that was probably more of the element of the football industry that took, a bit of kind of getting used to. And I think that there has been a slight change in that. I think there's still a massive room for that movement to go, but it is still a very male dominant sport, especially in a male or men's side, which Brentford and who I was working with, it's, they do have a female team, but it's not professional or anything like that. So you're not working with females as such.
And I suppose this was during the time where Brentford, they decided to not have an academy system because did they have Brentford B team?
Yeah, exactly that.
There was this period where they they decided that they would rather reinvest money into the players rather than only 2 players out of the academy side going into the first squad.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're dead right. And I think that because of the success that the Brentford team have had in the Premier League, that's when that introduction of Premier Leagues have to have an academy and have to have a grassroots and a development program. So that's when I kind of, the start of that decision I came in for, but that hadn't come into fruition until my kind of second year of working as such. So I worked with the B team, so I had about 28, 30, and they were professional players between the ages of 17 and 22, I think, yeah. And then in my second year of working at Brentford, that's when we started bringing in the academy side. So we had an under-18 side that was full on. So then I kind of went from 28 to 48 players, and obviously with that, you're just juggling so many more balls because of, the policies and processes.
Are you on your own during that time?
I was in that role, yeah. So we built out the academy, but I was the second staff to be kind of employed as under the academy kind of umbrella as such, but it was still in that first 9 months of working there, it was still under the model of the first team and B team, and then it's still, it's still is in that sense of Brentford now, but I think it's more separate in terms of there's an academy team now, and then the first team and then the B team kind of fit between both. So that was also a big learning and big good experience in terms of that kind of high performance in a different environment in terms of football, but also a different environment in terms of New Zealand and the UK. I think there's a lot of correlation. I think that's what kind of why they kind of appointed me in that role, is that I've had that experience of what it's like to be a full-time athlete. But I think the football industry is very, very different to the New Zealand hockey kind of industry and build up back in New Zealand.
So in that role, what were you there to try and kind of achieve, and what did you find to be the main kind of problem areas that maybe players were going through at that time?
Yeah, I think so it was probably brought into that role to support the players. Well, it was to support the players with everything off pitch. So, you kind of fell into that role as, some of the a lot of the players weren't based within Brentford and weren't living at home. So you're kind of like their mum or their auntie at the club, that you were their person that they saw 6 days of the week. So you were their support network off the pitch. So, they'd have their coaches and obviously that relationship with the physical and performance side of it. But you were their person kind of that they would come to, and that would be, managing different things in terms of, their living, their movement if they were going on loans and things like that, as well as them, their well-being as such. And so I think that's why the role became so big in that regard, because it was like, wow, at the end of the day, it's how they're developing as people away from the football pitch. And that was my big driver and big motivation in terms
developing
of
still into adults, aren't they? They're still developing as a person.
Massively.
They might be alone, away from home and family.
Yeah, and a lot of them, you kind of challenge them or had different conversations one-to-one, mentored, all of them in that sense of, okay, if something was to happen in football, or, you weren't to get that next move or that injury, what do you have going on for you? And a lot of them was just like, I don't really know. I don't think I have really anything. And I think that was the big kind of awakening in that kind of area and industry of football, is that we need to support these young people more in the regards of education, but also and that doesn't have to be just academia. It can just be developing those skills to go into trade or go into different apprenticeships to build up who they are. But I think it's so hard in that regard as well to kind of for me to have these conversations. They would just look at me like I'm speaking another language, and I know I've got the New Zealand accent, and sometimes it does come about in terms of they're like, what are you saying, Bridget? But I think, that was, that challenge in terms of, well, there's only such a small, minuscule percentage of footballers, or generally actually any athlete.
And one day you will retire anyway. It doesn't matter if it's
Yeah.
35, you still need something else.
You still need something else. And I think that was the big thing that I kind of, wanted to bring in. And, but I think with everything else going in the club, as well as, the players are very, and the coaching and the background team are very focused on that person as a football player. And I think it takes a lot to really go, okay, stop, stand back. How are we managing, this person as a person, or outside of their sport, outside of them playing full-time sports. And I think that's heightened and brought into that passion that it lighted by creating BB360 Athlete, because it was like, sport is amazing thing, but there's only such a small percentage that actually go on to play it high performance wise, and actually go on to play it for a dedicated time, and then can have a career because they've either earned money or things, in terms of speaking, or things come, sponsorship comes outside of it. That's such a small percentage of even people who do that.
Such a small window,
you've got to have something else that's part of who you are, whether you use it or not at that time, or like I said, the timing thing is such a big piece, but being able to have that thing that is also part of who you are is just, I believe, so crucial.
Yeah, this is something I could talk about for ages, because I love sport, but the reason why I kind of started this podcast and when I was at uni, I went back to study sports science, but my big passion was the mental health side. And I realized that I think once you look at a lot of athletes, especially football, a lot struggle when they don't have that purpose to wake up and go, I've got training today, I've got a contract, and that's what really made me quite sad for a lot of athletes, is because they are clearly able to take on information and be amazing at producing, physically these things on the pitch. They will be able to do something to that ability if they find another passion. And they're good learners. They have to be good learners, or they wouldn't do it. Yeah, you can have talent, but they still have to learn. So there's just something there. If we can prove to clubs that you will get the same output and performance from an athlete if they are doing something they love on the side, it's not going to take it away from their performance on the pitch. It's going to improve them. It's going to make them happier. It's going to give them maybe their family even happier, their immediate family, partners and children, that they're not always so stressed on how they were in training that day, or it ruins their weekend because they didn't score, or they missed that, or that tackle, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So there's so much potential there for athletes finding that other purpose, but still having that sport.
100%. And so many of the skills, as you mentioned, is so transferable, being a part of a team, or being able to, manage resilience, like without them even knowing they're doing that, they're building those traits. And I think it's taking us, like we said, taking a step back from that environment and going, I've got all these strengths, now how can I transfer it to the real world when that is to happen? And that, we know that can happen at any moment. It's injury, it's selection, it's then, later on in terms of retirement, if, you've played for a certain amount of years, but it can happen at any point of your sport journey. Yes, for me, it was potentially younger than, one of my best mates in the team. She only finished 2 years ago, and her now transition into that full-time work, she was actually over a year and a half ago, because her husband was a track cyclist for New Zealand. And so she was staying with me for a few days, and we had a fruitful conversation about it, because both of our different experiences have shaped who we are, but also, through sport, it's provided that foundation. But it was really interesting having that conversation with her, because she was just like, now at 30, so that's 2 years ago, now at 30, she's, working in a law firm and things like that. She's like, I'm at the same age as what a 23-year-old is in terms of
graduate level, basically.
Graduate level. And she's just like, Bridge, this is so hard. And I was just like, yes, it is, mate, but also take a step back and what you have achieved over the last 12 years. She played, internationally for, and she was a phenomenal player. She still is, but, she was world class, like top 5 in the world. Like she, and I said, like, look what you've achieved in that sense. and you've had your law degree. Yes, it took you 9 years compared to some of our friends who were just doing law that took 5, but look at who and what you've built around that.
It's not going to be taken away from her, yeah.
No, and she'll move up those ladders and, move up the firm maybe quicker than other people in her position because she's had that experience and because she can manage so many other things because of what sport in terms of hockey has taught her. So, but I think it is hard to swallow that sometimes as well, and that's a pride thing as well, and I think that's the thing in terms of, sometimes in terms of, what you're holding on to sometimes can hold you back as well. So I think that kind of, we had a great conversation about it, and she was like, look what you're doing now. And I was like, but it's very different. I've had more time to, flesh out and have those different opportunities. And I think, we live in a world where we don't want to and shouldn't, but we compare and look at each other or look at what other people are doing. And I think that's just the absolute worst thing as well, because it just, you're judging what other people are doing on what you are, and you just really, you can't. And so I think all of that kind of philosophy or thought, worked with the footballers and worked with now, the different athletes in terms of, this is the bubble that you're in right now, but it can pop at any point, and what then will become, who you are, and what will then become your bubble. So it's interesting, but I appreciate and I think definitely agree with you in terms of how can we bring this or an element in. And I think it's top down, it's leadership, right? It's them, it's the higher ones up going, agree with, what Bridget and Craig are saying, that we need to focus on the person behind the performer, the person behind the sports person, and actually support them.
So let's get into what you're doing now on the present time. So you decided to go your own way, start your own organization, BB360 Athlete. What are the services that you provide? Like, let's say a club. Is there different services for a sports club than a school? So you do for schools as well?
Yeah, so there's there's two elements in the sense of one-to-one, so straight athlete mentoring in terms of, working with that high-performance sport person, or whether it's, working with that person who's already in it and kind of providing that mentorship in terms of creating that kind of development of who they are around it, as well as working with schools and kind of transfers to the clubs or teams. I think, working with certain teams, you're kind of looking at building the values, building the culture of who they are, working as a team as such, very, kind of like an isolated group, is working with schools as a more general, it's mainly in that kind of sports scholarship or certain year groups that are aspiring or have already kind of been noticed or identified as this could be their journey that they go down. And so working with a group in that sense of doing workshops, and then from that, I think, the workshops are great in the regard that you can cover a lot, and time is always the big strain for all of us, but you can cover a lot within a time to numerous people. Yeah. But I think that one-to-one building from there is then that extra kind of development, because like as mentioned, everyone is so different in terms of, individualized in terms of their development of, but particularly in terms of their sport, or also who they are in their makeup as well as their interests. So within that, you kind of build a model, but the workshops kind of give a more all-rounded kind of holistic approach to that. And then, within that, then there's the opportunity to do one-to-one stuff as well.
Do you try and promote kind of conversations with athletes during their careers to help kind of going into that transitional period for the athlete?
Yeah, it has to be that conversation during or before, because I think it's too late otherwise. Like if it's too late in terms of then retirement or selection or injury, it's yes, you can still have a impact. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's coming back to that whole proactive element, as if they've got those thought frames, or they're working on something alongside their sport, then they do have that option when it is to end. So I think the real kind of point that I want to focus on is the athletes are part of the club while they're coming into that club, or kind of in those early days of being in the club, to being in that environment is the real kind of crucial time to work with them. Because for some of those people in that club, like we mentioned, the contracts are finished for them in 1 year compared to a contract that they've signed for 5 years, so they know what their next kind of makeup is going to be like. So those transitions happen at different times. And so I think if they've built that knowledge and understanding and, personal development within themselves during that time that they're playing sport, then that transition, still hard, but it will be easier because they've got those options and because they've got that, completely preparation is key.
Are these all kind of in person, or are you trying to connect with people kind of online as well? Like, I'm just wondering, like there's the possibility of connecting with so many different clubs. Like we both know that this is vital for athletes, and it's almost like the clubs maybe know it, but they don't have that time to concentrate on it. And are you able to go to Manchester, where there's so many professional clubs there? Are you able to do things online, or is it kind of anonymous? Or do you know that kind of thing?
Yeah, completely. I think it's both options, to be honest with you. I think, we learnt through the COVID times that actually online and technology can really work. And so I think that kind of provides, like what we're doing now in terms of online, you can make things happen if you want it to. So I think that's the big thing, is for them to go, what Bridget is, talking to us in regards to this BB360 athlete, we get it, and we kind of trust in terms of what she wants to deliver. And then it's about then making it happen in terms of that. And like anything, it's not going to stick or resonate with everyone. And I think that's also been the part of my learning as part of this, is going, okay, it's okay. You're not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. But I think the big part of that in my learning is that you don't lose hope from what you are trying to deliver and drive and, aspire to support people with, because it's like anything, you go for an interview, or you're part of a team, and you either are liked, and it's one person's opinion sometimes, and that's, you can't let it as anything, you can't let it define what you are trying to deliver. And so I think that's the big thing, is going, okay, resonating, and them going, we understand and we really like what you are talking to us and promoting, so how can we make this work? And I think, it's having that solution focus, whether it's in person. I think in person is always so much more kind of relatable, but also is that different experience, isn't it? Because you can pick up those body images or body language, you can pick up those different certain cues compared to online. You're behind a screen, but I think you can still deliver really key messages in both regards. So just keen to kind of make whatever happen, whether it be time zones and things like that, back in New Zealand or the States is we know how the States sports movement is moving at the moment, and it's going at a rapid pace in terms of the funding that's going into especially women's sports. So how can we, or how can I kind of get into that? And it's connections, it's network at the end of the day, a lot of it. It's who because people trust who they've kind of
with,
been referenced or given that heads up to. So I think it's part of that as well, but also it's just I think resonating and people going, completely can see where this does have value and how we can make it work. So that's where a couple of these opportunities within schools are progressing, which is really cool. But I appreciate that it's not going to work for everyone, because they may already have people in those roles that, as teachers, that can deliver it, but everyone's delivery and everyone's content and experience is so different. So that's when you kind of bring in a different element to it.
Well, this is something that I did a dissertation. My dissertation was about the effects of mental health for academy footballers in the UK. Obviously, having that support network was vital, but what a lot of players were kind of worried about being seen to be going into the psychologist's through the psychologist's door or the doctor's door, so they have that support network there, but then maybe didn't feel comfortable accessing that support network because they were worried that it might look like they are weak, or they are worried that the manager might not think he's not mentally prepared for the weekend, those kind of things. So maybe this is what you offer, is that it's by yourself who's been there and done that in a sporting world, but also as a teacher, as a player care worker, but also it's not necessarily right in the club. The athlete would be able to access you and have that support from you, but not be kind of have maybe that stigma of people knowing that I'm going there in the building,
Yeah, completely. And just that independent support network, or just someone who's, and a different perspective as well sometimes is, when you're, we've mentioned it in terms of that sport bubble, when you're living in, everyone's living in their own bubble as such, and when you kind of pop it and come out of it and look into it, it's having that different perspective that can sometimes, support that as well. And I think that's, working in terms of with the footballers, the coaches would obviously have a certain, and I was kind of caught between the two, I knew what the coaches thought of that player. I knew how that player was potentially feeling about how they were. And I was kind of being that middle person to just, get people to think about it at different angles, which is just so crucial. And I think, it helps if you have that openness, it helps you kind of be better in terms of what your job is as well, whether that be a coach, whether it be a player, whether it be, performance, physical trainer, whatever elements that you have. I think you can have that impact if you have that kind of openness and that growth mindset that we all, kind of talk about and have real value in terms of actually supporting that person as an athlete. And I think, and that's, I think females compared to males are possibly still different in that sense of being open about how they may be feeling, but I think it is moving in that right direction in terms of, I have this conversation with my friends, and, a lot of them are males, and, they are, so much better at talking and being open, and that's all it is. It's communication. It's getting it off your chest. It's just sharing it with somebody and knowing that they're not going to change how you're feeling or change what experience that you personally are going through, but it's just being able to, share those thoughts. And it's that awareness that feelings are a thought. And that, like you said, that perspective, as well as just, being open, getting it off your chest, and, not being too proud in terms of having to put on a certain front, or this person doesn't feel the same as me, or they don't go through the mental struggles. No, but they do. They just do it in a different way and overcome it in a different way as well. And I think that's that's the big message behind all this as well, is that we are all individual and that we have all these different strengths, but also we have all these different things that come into our head, and some of us dwell on it longer than others. And I think that's also the key, is being able to manage, the thoughts or the feelings when they come, but also being able to be strong enough in who you are to overcome it as well and create that toolbox. And I think that's also part of what my kind of support is in terms of that is, I'm not going to solve your problem for you, but I can support you in terms of helping provide solutions, or helping you provide those strategies that are going to help you and get through this problem, but also get through other things or other challenges that may arise. And that's in sport, that's in life, that's in all the different lessons that we're all throwing.
And obviously the Olympics is coming up later on this year, and then there's going to be potentially the 4-year cycle will end for some players, and they might want to leave their sport, or maybe they feel this is the time where I should leave the sport. I suppose it's not just football, is it? It's going to be any sport of any time. Some might have an injury, they might have to leave the sport, but especially for yourself, you've been through that Olympic cycle. I suppose this is something that you would want to look at as well.
Yeah, completely. And I think, again, it's the timing. Like right now with the Olympics, 5 months away, they don't want to be necessarily having those conversations because it provides that distraction, I guess. But I think again, it comes back to actually having those options or that open dialogue early enough that when it does happen or when those things arise, that you actually do take a step back. And I think, through my experience, having that end of 2012 to just reset and have a bit of kind of downtime and away from it kind of just helps again provide that perspective, as well as helps make your decision up in terms of, okay, do I want to continue for another cycle or continue for 2 years until the next World Cup, or am I ready and is this the right time for me in terms of what I want to do? And I think, having that time and not being too impulsive with those decisions are crucial as well. And I think, a lot of people work towards those pinnacle events and then stop, or express that they're going to retire after a certain test match in the cricket or a certain, World Cup in rugby or hockey or, football or whatever it may be. But a lot of the time, some of those decisions actually don't come with a lot of preparation. So it's having that time to just, have that other piece and things ticking along without it taking away your focus of what you're trying to achieve while you're in that sport bubble as well. So it is a balance, and it is, it is a juggle, and it's something that takes a lot of consideration as well as takes a lot of brain power and time. And so that's not gonna lie about that, but it also is crucial in terms of that other side and that movement and that transition of sport is, being healthy and happy, which to me is success, and, being healthy and happy within sport, but also without it, and, in life as well, because it's a long time that you're not playing sport. So, in that other kind of phase of life. So, having good people around you helps. Being strong enough to manage those adversities and challenges, because we are all strong enough to manage it. It's just how we do it is the key part. So no, it's been great, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you. And first
No
female
problem.
even helps as well too, Craig. First female on your
First female,
podcast.
absolutely. Bridget, honestly, it's not like I haven't asked. I've asked quite a lot of people, LinkedIn, quite a lot of ladies, quite a lot of guys from different backgrounds, and I just look like your stereotypical white guy doing a podcast with white guys,
No, I'm just winding up, but it is cool. And again, it's different perspectives, women, female. I mean, I love listening to all types because you do pick up different things from it. So, but I did want to just throw that in terms of, come on, girls, get out there, share your thoughts.